Welcome to the Tech Savvy Professor podcast, which features two faculty who love tech and love making it part of their work. I'm Marty Gencius, an associate professor at Kent State University and program coordinator for the master's program here.
Yeah, and I'm Eric Perry. I am an associate professor and a program director for the counseling program at Divine Mercy University.
So this is kind of a unique situation. You were on the road.
I am, yeah. So I'm on campus for residency this week, so our clinical training week for our practicum students. And actually, our campus is right outside of Dulles Airport, so you might actually get to hear some of the planes flying over the building as we're recording.
So if you're out of Dulles, you're outside of Dulles, you're quite a ways to get to downtown DC, aren't you?
Well, a half hour-ish, 45 minutes.
Oh boy, you're an optimist.
Yeah, I mean, I provided the day, right? We did visit last time. I had my daughter come with me the last residency, and she kind of helped out with food and, just hung out at campus. And then a Sunday, we went down and visited the Capitol. It was a pretty quick trip. The traffic was really minimal.
So what did you see? You just went to the Capitol, or did you go anywhere else with her?
Yeah, so we drove past the White House, did the Lincoln Memorial. We didn't have a whole lot of time for much else. I think she's going to do it again, and next time we're going to visit, hopefully, some museums and different things. Maybe extend our stay a little.
Yeah, there are some really cool museums.
Hmm.
I was in and out a lot of DC, and we flew into Reagan. And because of that, I pretty much would hop cabs or hop Ubers into downtown or the central area to go to restaurants that I liked and see places that I wanted to see. And sometimes it felt like I'm just doing this because it's a ritual, but rituals are important. So
Sure.
I had a good time with that. So just one other question about that. Any particular tech that you brought with you, since we've talked about travel tech before?
Yeah, so I have my triple monitor set up. So the two monitors that sit on either side of the screen, they extend. They're small. I want to say like 12, 13-inch monitors on either side, but it does help. Really easy to set up, but this is my second set. I broke one before this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm not sure how. I just throwing it into the truck and loading it up. I think I must have just been a little too rough with it. So
yeah. I bought one of those at your recommendation and have been too cautious to want to use it because it feels just like it's putting a lot of potential weight on your laptop lid. Do you have any issues or concerns about that, or do you have a beast that you're working with?
So my laptop is pretty sturdy. I have an R17 Alienware, so a larger screen. It is snug, right? It's definitely snug, but I ordered it because it would fit the measurements for this screen. So it seems to be okay. I don't see any discoloration. The one I had before this, the model, and I'll try and look it up so I can give you a link for this, Marty, to throw in there. This one was designed for this size monitor. The last one I had, I felt like I had to stretch, and I could actually see a little discoloration on either side of the screen. I was like, it's a little too snug. Yeah.
Yeah, they must have gotten better with the newer models. Mine is sitting on the shelf over to the right of me, and I occasionally bump into it. I'm like, I should do something with that. But I'm curious, if you do find something, throw it in the show notes and we'll put it in. I might search back and get the link to the one that I had, and then we'll compare it or put it into the show notes through the link of the one that you've got that you're more comfortable with. Anything else with travel tech that you are aware that you had to take with you?
Nothing new. I mean, the kind of same kind of things we've talked about here on the show. My USB switch always kind of comes along with me. I brought a Logitech HD camera that I generally use for travel. I'm actually looking at the model. Yeah. It's the 720p version. So it's getting a little dated at this point, but works a lot better than the onboard laptop camera anyway.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about workflows, but particularly the workflow of communicating with students and colleagues. And those can sometimes be two different workflows for us. And so the first question is, what is your workflow in communicating?
So I get a lot of email. The program director position means some lots of decisions, lots of questions, but a lot of the questions are similar questions. So workflow wise, usually I work through Gmail, tend to prioritize things as they come in. I'm really bad about setting time aside to just do email. I tried to do that a little bit and now I'm kind of getting away from it. More so, I get in and I organize within Gmail based on tasks and importance, and I use their little stars for things that I need to get to. It's a little bit different from the flags in Outlook. Using text blaze a lot more. We've talked about some of these tools on previous shows, but especially to organize those templates, it makes life so much easier. And anybody who's listened before knows I'm cheap, and this is one I pay for because it really does equal out in terms of the savings relative to time. So generally my workflow when things come in is to kind of sort and organize. Does it need a response now, later, or tomorrow, or some point in the future? And I have folders for that kind of set up to slot things away.
That's really organized.
It helps.
Yeah, I have I have some things that I try to do. I'm working on a Mac. The university works in the Windows ecosystem. Everybody, about a third of the people that I know at the university, or maybe even more, are using Macs. But we are bought into this Microsoft ecosystem. And so it creates some problems for us. In particular, being able to see and organize stuff around email, I wind up having to use Outlook. And for a while, I used Outlook for all of my accounts, my Gmail account and my personal iCloud account. And I had a situation where one of our faculty passed on unexpectedly, and I inherited his computer. And part of the task was to go through his computer and his email and try and separate out anything that was really student related that needed to be addressed. And he had combined his personal email with his work email through one email client. I also found that there was just too much coming in when I had everything going through one email client. So the way I kind of separate my life now is I have to deal with Outlook, and I use that just for my work account. So anybody who's getting to me through work or through my work email address, it's going to go to Outlook. Now, the other problem is I'm trying to find a email client to handle my personal email that ticks all the boxes for me. And I do have projects outside of work that I do that use my personal email, and they don't organize things as well as Outlook does, or at least in the same fashion that Outlook does. Spark Mail is very, very popular. I find it just incredibly confusing, and it's asking me to do too much with my mail database. Every time I start it up, it wants me to sort like 50 items, and I don't want to deal with that. So I'm using Mac Mail, Apple Mail, and that has its good points and bad points. I've tried and am currently using a email client called Mail Maven. And believe me, I've been through Spark, I've been through Apple Mail, I've been through all the different Airmail, I've been through all the different app products. And I need to have something that is on not only my desktop, but is also on my phone. And that creates a problem because some of these products like Mail Maven right now just has a desktop version. So I wind up using Apple Mail for my phone, and that isn't satisfying. I'm working essentially then between three platforms: Outlook, Mail Maven, and whatever Apple Mail that I have on my phone. There are some things that don't work well with each of these, like unread mail counts are wrong on some of them. So I'll get on my phone and it'll say I'll have 6 unread mails in Outlook, but I go in there and it's like, yeah, I read all these. It just has not synced to clear it out of the unread mail pile. And that happens with the Mac side too, with the apps that I'm using for Mac. So my email is Outlook for work, and I flag and pin stuff. The problem is the pin list is getting so long that sometimes I go to the bottom of the list, the ones that have been there the longest, and it's like that person has either given up on me or they've passed away. And so it then becomes unpinned and another thing I didn't get to. I don't I don't use folders well because the Outlook folder system and I can organize well on my desktop, but then when I go to my phone, the folders are kind of randomly distributed and I can't move them around like I can. And if I move them around on my desktop, it doesn't seem to mirror that on my phone app. So it's hard for me to say I'm going to put this in this folder and I'll remember to go to it because then I've got 60 emails in 20 different folders and it just doesn't help my workflow. So I will flag some things that I don't want to pin and just to remind me I need to get to this thing. And it's one of those things that I can finish maybe in a quick response and get it over with and then take the flag off of it and it's done versus the pin stuff, which are larger project issues. So I kind of have that frustration with email. I use Text Expander, which I think is like your Text Blaze. Was it something you mentioned?
Mhm.
An app? Yeah. And that is for, I'd like to know more about your program. Please tell me about your program. Those kind of emails where I've constructed something to say, this is how we can meet here, send me back some times and dates. It's all kind of put, so all I got to do is do a couple of keystrokes and it populates the email and sends it back to the prospective applicant. When I get something from them, then I can actually set aside the time to do it. Sometimes I get long lists of questions and I appreciate their organization, but I'm not going to sit there for half a day and write a response to all of those questions. I'm going to say, find a time where we can meet and we can talk. Our university uses for meetings, they use Teams because they're so Microsoft centric. And the only time I wind up using Teams is when I'm at home and I have to go to a university called meeting from like the provost or a general meeting. They all force us onto Teams at that point. All the other stuff I do online, student meetings, office hours that I might do online, asynchronous classes, I do in Zoom. And that works. It works for students and it's less bandwidth and less problems for folks. Calendar, Fantastical. I know Outlook has a built-in calendar. I haven't been able to integrate. I don't want to integrate all my other accounts in there, so I wind up using a separate email that works on desktop, phone, tablet, and Fantastical is one of those. It also incorporates requests from Outlook pretty easily. So when I open up my email, I've got a request at the top of it, and it's an Outlook request for some meeting I need to be at or be on for something with the university. So Fantastical. And I don't think there's a PC version of that. I doubt there's a PC version of that.
No.
What would you say is the best PC calendar that you would say?
I'll be honest, as much as it does have its eccentric things, I've grown to like Google Calendar. And I've tried a couple of different apps on the PC side, just integration issues, particularly across if you're using both Outlook accounts and Gmail accounts.
Yeah.
Our whole university is into the Google product, so we use Zoom as opposed to Teams, and then Google Calendar to even manage our facilities, our meeting rooms, and reservations and things like that. And it can be clunky, but it seems to update and sync across devices much easier.
Yeah. Fantastical has some eccentricities. It's much more fully featured than Google Calendar. I run a Google Calendar, and generally when I add things to Fantastical, use the Google Calendar choice. So if it's like meetings, I'll add it under the Google Calendar on Fantastical. So I have lots of replication with that. But Fantastical, it can be a little tough to get accounts set up on it.
Mm.
And I think I've complicated it by having two different Fantastical accounts because I wound up screwing that up. So every time I set it up on a new computer, I have to guess or try. And then I find that certain calendars aren't set up on it. I'm like, oh, I should have signed in on the other one. And then I go ahead and do that. But I do really like Google Calendar, and that works well with folks outside of my Fantastical ecosystem. If I'm trying to set up a meeting with someone else, that works as a good intermediary. Again, unless it comes from the university and it's something they want to throw on my calendar with the Outlook calendar or whatever it's called, the Microsoft calendar, I try to have a tendency to stay away from it and use Fantastical or the Google Calendar. Now, that's all works well for students. There are a couple of colleagues, like I say that I'm actually co-coordinating the program. We have a doctoral program where we have a coordinator that does that. I do the master's program up until and sometimes after the practicum, but we have another professor here who does the practicum internship and kind of posts stuff. And we use our email, we use our messaging. I have iMessage on my desktop. I like it because it's on my desktop. I don't have to go to my phone and use my big fat fingers to type stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
So I do appreciate that, but that's limited to colleagues. I wish it could be extended, but that's kind of a personal and privacy issue. I understand that for faculty, and they don't want me emailing or messaging them on a Sunday afternoon when it's their Sunday afternoon. Now, I try to avoid that consciously with colleagues too. I very rarely do that. But during the day, if something's going on and I need a quick response, I think having that availability for doing direct messaging for folks that you know are the decision makers with your program, it avoids having to write long emails and just add more chains to your already overcrowded email box when it's something simple and fast. So that's sort of my process. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do the same. On the PC side, there's PhoneLink that you can use. I use it for my Android device. We handle a lot either within WhatsApp or just via text message. I hate texting with my phone. Absolutely hate texting with my phone.
Me too.
There's not a way I found that I'm comfortable doing it. I think because my hands are bigger, it feels clunky. I've had the giant phablet phones, and that helps some, but it just never feels comfortable. So by and large, when I'm texting someone or I'm using WhatsApp or something like that to message, I'm using PhoneLink because I can use a full keyboard when I do it. I do a lot of voice to text when I'm not, which seems to work really well. But I hate typing on my phone.
My wife has turned voice to text into an art form. She has visual impairment issues, and she just loves. So we're driving in the car, and she's talking into her phone, basically sending a text message to somebody. And sometimes it doesn't work, so she has to do it twice. But she has really maximized that use. I haven't thought of that yet. I prefer to be typing things on a full-size keyboard in front of my computer. That used to be a bigger problem with the Android and Apple split. Like I could only do messaging through iMessage on my phone. I couldn't do it on my desktop on that operating system to Android phones. But that's gotten better since they're all on SMS, I guess, or RMS at this point in terms of texting formats. So what do you wish you could use?
Telepathy. That would be great, right?
I don't know if I want all those voices in my head. I've got enough already.
Just a direct message, right? Not a conversation. I don't know. So we've used Slack in the past, Marty, you and I, years ago.
Yeah.
I've tried it a couple of times with folks to, organize projects, tasks. I think we're so ingrained in the Google system here that, they want to collaborate around a Google Doc, but I think sometimes it's hard to make that sell with the things that Slack has, but I would love to use it. I think Zoom and Teams both have been trying for a couple of years to really get their collaboration tools going. But I know at least with Teams, they've kind of struggled with all the OneDrive and all the changes that they've had, really getting a handle on that. I haven't been able to try the Zoom collaboration function. We don't have that, I don't think, as a part of our account, but I'd like to try it. Maybe give it a go. Is that something you've used ever?
I haven't used it yet. It pops up every time I use Zoom. Wouldn't you like to do this? But again, it's like you. It's getting buy-in from other faculty. It's like, just trust me with this, and let's do it this way instead of a constant barrage back and forth of emails. When basically what we're talking about or what we're trying to deal with is immediate. It's not something that we need any serious email record of, although you can get all those records in Slack. You can go back and get that information if you want. But it's hard getting the buy-in because it means trying something new. There's also, I mean, for me, when I work, I like to work in kind of an immediate mode. And there's a lot of things that means if I used it, I'd be more permeable to other people. I don't particularly mind that, but other people don't want that permeability. So the thing with Slack, if I could get everybody on the faculty to be on Slack, we could be doing some of our simple messaging. Hey, I need to know this back and forth. But it would mean that thing would have to sit in residence for them, and a notification might come up that there's a particular direct message for them. They'd have to respond it. And I think people, academia has been built around academic freedom and academic choice. All that's going to pot right now. So, but the idea that academics can kind of create their own structure and workflow without having to be corporatized by having those kind of communication methods that you would have if you worked in a business. People still want that. And if you don't have complete buy-in, then you're never going to be able to have a tool that's effective. There's always going to be that one or two people that didn't load it, aren't doing it, or, want an email on it instead. So,
Yeah, and I understand that partly, that you don't want to be beholden to a message or, and you see this in corporate life so much, your status wasn't green. Where were you? What were you doing? You didn't respond to a message right away. I think that's some of what email affords, is that ability to kind of pick and choose when you want to respond. But there's times too where I feel like there's a convenience there, and I think there's a distrust using some of those like instant message type tools.
Yeah, I don't expect my colleagues to respond right away. I know they've got other things going on. I just want to get it off my plate. And it's easier if it's kind of an onboard thing than an email, select the group, do all this, make sure it's clean and clear. When all I want to do is, are we still on for Friday? That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
And I don't need then one person to say, yes, I'm in, then another person to respond, yes, I'm in, then another person to respond, yes, I'm in. No, I can't make it. I would want some type of messaging service that would do that. I can't, I mean, WhatsApp, I think, has proprietary issues with privacy in terms of content, or potential issues in privacy in terms of content. I would never use messaging service to discuss a student's or FERPA concerned stuff, or anything obviously with HIPAA. That would be a HIPAA regulation. But I would just like some quick ways to get some stuff off my plate. And, people can shut it off on the weekend. I don't care. But when I'm working, I wish that we had that ability to work more collaboratively instead of doing a whole series of emails back and forth. Along those same lines, project management software. We should do it. We should do a show just on PIMs, or I was going to say PMS, but that's not what we.
It's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Project management software, because I find them fascinating. Unfortunately, all the ones that I have access to and that I want to use to the capacity that I want to use them require a fee when I get down to it. I mean, there are some free ones, but then you're limited to Kanban charts, and you can't do Gantt charts and things like that, and ways of organizing it. And if you invite, you can only invite so many people in, and you can't do certain functionality with it. Maybe we'll do a show on that with a little bit more research. We can talk about them. But I, another piece of software that kind of went dead for me was when I had a work group on a media project that I was working on with an association. And I just didn't want to do the emails back and forth. And I said, okay, so you put me in charge. Let's use a project management service. And so I set it up, and then I realized if I invite somebody, it's going to cost me $10 a month for them. And then it's going to cost me another $10 for every other person I invite. I only had 3 people on the committee. So I went ahead and said, let's get the full use of this. We'll see if it works or it doesn't. We'll see how we use it. I just, frankly, I want to learn how to use these things anyways. It's great for organizing tasks. It's great for coming up. And some of the stuff I need to get this project done, I'd run it through ChatGPT, and it would give me an outline of when and what things need to happen. Then I'd put it into the project management, make assignments. And then things got busy. I didn't look at it. And of course, I fell behind on the project management system. So I have some other ones that are pretty expensive that are only Mac based that I can mention when we do the show. They're good for project organization, but more personal than shared. And of course, if you share anything in those apps, then that other person has to have the app too. So you're putting a financial burden on them. So cloud-based ones was what I was thinking of. Mondays, and there's a couple other I can't remember. Zello maybe. And those kinds of things I've looked at and priced, and I'm fascinated by it. I tried to use Discord, similar to Slack. And, I had a team on another project that's free. And I thought, well, we can use Discord. And I had some folks who were supposedly very tech savvy and younger than me. And I figured they got to know Discord. It was an education for most of them. And I don't know Discord that well, but we set up a Discord group and was able to do that. I'd never be able to get that done with the faculty in my program, like a Slack, but a free Slack in the sense. It still has a very gamer feel to it, and has been used for gamer streaming and things like that. So that would be kind of if I could wish for it, I'd wish for project management software, and I'd wish for some sort of quicker method of messaging and communicating with each other. One last thing about project management. I was with this group that I was telling you about, and we tried to find, and a person said, oh, I'm big on this stuff. Here, let's go to Microsoft Project or Microsoft Planner. Microsoft has a couple of apps that are built into their 365. And so she attempted to set it up, and she sent me invitations, and none of the invitations would work. Now, I'm on a Mac. I do pay for the Mac version of Outlook, or excuse me, Microsoft 365. It wouldn't work on a Mac platform.
Interesting.
So that's why I switched, and I said, let me look at a cloud-based service that all of us can work with. So again, the platform compatibility is a problem with it.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was there. I'll have to take a look at it. We use Mondays. This is kind of our official platform. Use it for a couple projects, and I have some opinions about it. But yeah, I think we can definitely fill a whole show on just project management stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, that gives listeners some ideas about and workflows and communication, particularly with students and with colleagues. And you hopefully will think about what it looks like for you now and what you might want to be able to do something different. Eric, it seems like your university is all bought into the Google ecosystem. I'm not saying that's bad. It's nice when everybody's on the same platform and when it's accessible, whatever device you use it on. But, we are paying our dues to the devil with Microsoft at our campus, and people like it. They say it's secure. They can lock down the security on it. They can do some enterprise sort of stuff with it that allows them some functionality. I just find it tedious, and I think probably 30% of the faculty and folks who work at the institution feel that way too. just because it's not cross-platform compatible in a way.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
if you're at an institution and you're locked into a system and everybody goes that way, God bless you. Happy for you, and I'm happy for your descendants. So anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. No. Like I said, I'm
Yeah.
going to grab that link for you for the dual monitor setup that I bought to replace my old one, so you can throw that on
Okay.
here for listeners.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything else that we talked about that is link worthy in terms of the show, but let's get those two on there and I'll put that in the show notes. Show notes are available in the video version of this podcast. It's live. We're trying to stay consistent with Thursdays at 2 p.m. So you can always catch us at youtube.com/at tech savvy professor is the link to the channel on YouTube. If you want to watch this video at some time, either live or later on after I've produced it and put it up, you can find it there. You can also find the podcast version of it there too. But most people, if they're listening to the podcast version, are listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or other services. And we're available. The audio is available on all those other services too. Coming up, Macstock Conference and Expo, MacstockConferenceandExpo.com. The link will be in the show notes. It is a conference for Mac-centered sort of folks, and it happens in Northern Illinois. I'll be there presenting. I'll be bringing some Tech Savvy Professor stickers because apparently these guys like stickers. And my son will be presenting as we do a podcast, Gear Up and Go, with me. And so it's just a great gathering. You can take a look at it at MacstockConferenceandExpo.com. If you want to come, there are discount codes, podtalk.net. I screw it up for you. Podtalk50 is the discount code that'll get you $50 off registration for that. You can find out everything about us at thepodtalk.net. Look for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast servers. Our bumper music is from Philip Gross, Rast, from the Free Music Archive. Again, everything you need to know, just go to thepodtalk.net. Look for other shows like Circular Firing Squad. We do that. Eric's in when he's not out doing sports with his kids, which I understand. You don't want to miss that. Or maybe you do if you're like me. But the Circular Firing Squad happens on Sundays at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, again, live streamed. And then a show on spatial computing I do on Mondays at 9 o'clock, Vision Profiles at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's it for this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the Tech Savvy Professor.